And she kept saying to me, okay, you got to write this and the blogs. And this is when I was first getting into it. This is when I first started online. And I found the whole thing to be intimidating, and I was procrastinating.
This is Insight, scaling lessons from the street. In this series, we mastermind a set of topics plaguing women entrepreneurs on a mighty growth path, such as mindset, business modeling, sales, marketing, finance, and legal. Whether you're looking for world domination or to work less while being more profitable, you'll find learnings in here from women who know the journey and fight in the trenches every day. Insight is co-hosted by Andrea Henry, Megan O'Neill, Shelagh Cummins, Susan Diaz, and Wendy Brookhouse.
Hello, my name is Megan O'Neill, and I am one of the hosts of this podcast. I am a mindset expert, and I work with women to shift and empower their mindset as they build their business and embrace leadership. So today I picked a topic that I think most of us can relate to and have seen at one point in our life and probably still see it, and that is perfection. So the question that I want to pose to you is, I know that I have worked with so many entrepreneurs, so many women in particular, not so much men, who have been blocked by their perfectionism. And what I find is that they often think that perfectionism is a very beneficial thing to have. To be a perfectionist is a great thing. So I want to ask you, in your experience, where has perfection got in the way of your growth? And maybe tell me how you got through it, or if you're through it, or where you still see it.
I can speak to this from a couple of perspectives. We certainly see it a whole lot in clients when it comes to the communication and sort of putting themselves out there part of it. So it's always like, let's make the following 3 revisions and then we can go. Even back in the day when we were still doing print materials and brochures and stuff, you would see it in the most senior of executives who were female, who were like, let's try to modify this color one more time. Let's just make sure that the font is visible, or even something micro like that, or all the way up to, are we ready for this? And, like, what if something goes wrong or the system crashes? So I think perfectionism is something we see a whole lot when it comes to what we call pulling the trigger on something, which is often linked to an outcome, I guess, to my mind, which you're deeply invested in. And you're like, if I don't put everything into this, then the sky's going to fall. And I feel like maybe I would have been that way, or certainly raised that way, and that you had to be as close to perfect as possible. But working in this field has actually helped me be a lot less perfect, Megan. Like, working in digital marketing has helped me see that perfectionism is not necessary at all. Like, if the general average of the population is 75 and you can keep it at a consistent 85, you're probably rocking it. And that helps me from a perfectionism perspective, is like actively saying, what are the qualitative differences? And, why am I okay putting it out this way as opposed to putting it out perfect?
Yeah. Do you think it's the digital part that helps?
For me, for sure. I feel so. I feel like, because it's not like I've spent thousands of dollars on something to print it out, and then had to like my husband's spoken about how in the print industry, they would have to, stick stuff on top on one little strip over and over again if you got something wrong. It's nowhere close to that now, right? You just take a PDF off online or correct a video or whatever. So I like that. I like that ease of change. It almost gives me a little bit of, like, it relieves me. I feel better knowing that I can change it with the relatively simple amount of effort, and that prevents the perfectionism.
Yeah. I'm the absolute polar opposite. I gotta admit, I am not a perfectionist in the least, and it probably sometimes would have served me to slow the train down a little bit and fine tune and improve what it is that I put out. But one of my measures of success is results. And I learned very quickly, very early, that if I'm not in action, I'm not going to get results. And because I measure success through that result lens, and I'm a type A and very focused, sometimes too focused, I just push through, and imperfectly perfect is good enough. And perfectly imperfect equally is good enough. I do see it in a lot of my clients, and not a lot, in a certain amount I do see it in the clients that I work with, Megan, and I do notice that it's their way of procrastinating the results that are coming. There is always an underlying fear that's standing in the way. And the perfectionism, much like they use perfectionism and overwhelm as their two crutches. Oh, well, I'm in overwhelm, so I can't do it. Oh, it's not quite right. I can't put it out yet. But at the end of the day, it's always rooted in, well, there's something about the result that's making me really uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable about it working, which is most likely what it is. What is the impact if this really works? But it's not something that I focus on.
I'm a little bit like Sheila in that respect, I think, in that I believe in the iteration. And I think Seth Godin speaks to my heart when he says, if you're not embarrassed by the first thing you ship, then you ship too late.
Yeah.
And I look back to the first one number solution I did 10, 12 years ago. And I'm like, I can't believe I gave that out. And now it's like, looks so much better. And the other thing I heard that I was taught was perfectionism and procrastination are tied very closely. And I think you were saying that, Sheila, a little bit, as they're tied together. And Strategic Coach, they taught us the first 80%. And that if you just take that pressure off and just say, I'm going to do the first 80% and then I will revisit that. And if you did the first 80% and then you went back and did another 80%, well, now you're at 96% or something like that. So you're almost perfect. But what I think a lot of people find out is that once they've done their first 80, they've gotten it. They've got what they need to get to. And so where procrastination may have started showing up for me at certain points has been in my blogs and things like that. So when I look at my blog posts now is that I write them and then I ship them off to a copywriter. So I figure I've done the first 80 and they're going to take it over the finish line for me. And so I find that incredibly helpful so that I don't have an excuse not to ship anymore.
Yeah. So in my practice, I have a little bit of a dichotomy when it comes to, so I'm a recovering perfectionist as well. The legal side of things, I still kind of keep it because I need to, right? Like if I send out a contract or if I make an application, like it has to be right.
Yeah.
It has to be 100% right. Otherwise someone's going to sue me. More importantly, they won't get the protection that they need. So on the technical side of things, I'm still a perfectionist. Where I've let go of it is on the other areas of my business, particularly in marketing. And so, it took me years, people were telling me, you should do video. And I was like, in order to do video, I need to hire a videographer and it needs to go to a special place and the background needs to look nice and I'm going to have a copywriter do the script. And I had so many things that needed to happen. And so it never happened. And then one day I promised someone that I was going to put out a video by the end of, was it that month, Sheila? By the end of the month. I was like, I don't want to come back to Sheila and tell her that I haven't done this. And so I did it. And the reaction was really good. I was like, I've been doing this years ago, right? And that really was a bit of a turning point in my head where what I put out, it was good. It certainly wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I had envisaged in my mind of what it would look like. But the response, it was impacting people. People were listening and reacting in a way that they had not been reacting to my written words. And so that experience helped me move past the idea of perfectionism because the perfectionism was stopping me from reaching the people that I wanted to reach and impacting the people that I wanted to impact. And I think I probably sound like a broken record through a lot of the conversations we've had, but really, whenever I'm feeling stuck, whenever I'm feeling afraid of something or not comfortable, I really look at it as, okay, but what's my ultimate goal? Who am I trying to help? And will they be better served by me being perfectionist or me being scared? Or will they be more served by me just getting out of my own way? And that helps to move past it because I don't really care whether, the background was perfect or I had the right makeup or whatever else. People don't care.
Yeah. And I sort of had the opposite. I had a real belief about my ability to write not being so great. And I grew up with a lawyer father, so everything had, and an English major.
Yeah, right.
So they were really hard on me about my writing, both my parents, as a matter of fact. And I was the queen of grammatical errors, and I probably still am. And I wonder even if I have a learning disability around this. And I said this in my group one day. I was like, maybe there's some learning disability going on here, so I apologize. My punctuation, comma splice. But what I ended up procrastinating a lot, and I had a business coach when I first started in who was, an expert in marketing. And she kept saying to me, okay, you got to write this and the blogs. And this is when I was first getting into it. This is when I first started online. And I found the whole thing to be intimidating, and I was procrastinating. And it was all around my belief about my writing. My writing wasn't going to be good enough. It wasn't, done well enough. And I didn't know enough to hire someone, as a matter of fact, a copy person to do it. I got to that point. But then finally, I came to the conclusion that video, considering I talk to people all the time, would be the better thing for me. And that completely alleviated all the pressure. And I got moving on that. And I like to do a lot of video. But I find that a lot of the business women, especially when it comes to digital marketing and putting out videos, I find that they often procrastinate because they're afraid of how they sound, how they look. They want to have that. You're right, the videographer, the background. And I think many times they're comparing themselves to people who have a team. People have they hire a team to make them look like a Marie Forleo or something. And even Marie Forleo, I don't know if whoever is listening to this, Google Marie Forleo, because I remember when I tuned in to watch her videos, because she's a huge online. She has B School, I think it's called B School. She had this amazing videos. They were these glossy, highly produced. Her hair, I kept looking at her hair. She had this beautiful, I think they were extensions that were down. They were gorgeous. Do you remember her hair? And she had these
fantastic... They're not extensions.
No, they aren't. Well, her hair is gorgeous. And she had these great outfits on. And I used to look at her and I would just be like, wow. And I think a lot of people, what ends up happening is that you get these images in your head that you're comparing yourself to. And this is this is where you want to end up, the Marie Forleos of the world. And you can also get stuck in the perfection. So it has to be this, and this before I can put it out.
Yes.
And I think probably, Sheila, you've seen this more than anybody being business coach, is that the procrastination is deadly. It's deadly on so many different levels. But I do think it spills into the rest of our life too. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of women, particularly who are mothers, who feel that there's a lot of perfection. One of the things, the greatest lesson to me is my kid went into nursery school, and I still had these old beliefs about how kids had to go to school and how they had to look in their outfits. Mm-hmm. And my friend who was from the country said, oh my God, Megan, just let your kid wear what she wants. And I looked and I thought, there's a great belief that kid, that freedom to choose their clothes. So I think that perfection is really interesting amongst women, and I think it can be deadly for sure to building your business. Mm-hmm. What did you do in terms of getting beyond? You said you were a recovered perfectionist. I love that. What do you think that you did in order to become recovered? What did you switch, Andrea?
So I don't like to let people down. And so giving myself an external target certainly kind of kickstarted it. But I think it was just a matter of, I really want my business to get to a particular level. And it just became obvious that if I was not going to be visible, that it was not going to get to that level. And so my desire was greater than my fear. I don't really know. But also I think the response, I think a lot of it was in my head in terms of what I thought people wanted to see. And once I realized, and that's the important thing of not being a perfectionist and just launching, because you might be thinking that you need to create something and your audience doesn't care about what you think, it needs to look like. They just want to hear from you. And in fact, I remember her name now, Denise Duffield-Thomas, that I was talking about earlier. She shares, starting off doing videos and it was very unpolished and it was just her iPhone, like what I use. And as she got more money, she said, okay, now I can do it perfect. Now I can put the videographer and the lighting and the makeup. Her engagement fell because her people wanted to see the authentic person that she was, and they didn't want to see the glamorous, right? And so I think once you start and you start getting that response from your people, it encourages you to go further and to move past the perfectionism, because it's so clear at that point that they are not interested in seeing the completely polished version of you. They're interested in what it is you have to teach them and what is it you have to offer.
Go ahead, Suze.
I think for me as well, what helps is asking for feedback. I know that we all talk about, getting feedback from your clients and people you worked with, or various types of collaborations and partnerships. But I don't think that the understanding existed for me, at least, on how much proof points can help feed into my whatever was causing me to try to be perfect within myself, right? So opening up questions to whether it's clients or other types of people who are in engagements with us, and asking them what it is that they were looking for. Did they get what they were looking for? How were we different than somebody else who might have delivered the same service? Well, that sounds like the same old boring research questionnaire. It's humbling what you get out of that kind of thing. And it certainly does feed into considering that, I have to do everything I possibly can, because if we don't, this project will self-implode. For that kind of thing, like proof points, helps me.
Yeah. And I think that one of the byproducts that I've seen, a consequence of perfectionism, has been the micromanaging, which will burn you out. And essentially, your team will hate you. I mean, if anybody has ever worked with someone who micromanages them, that yes, you have. Andrea is going, yes, I have. I see the consequences in that respect, where, people don't want to let other people do the work that's needed to be done that you are not supposed to do. It's too small potatoes for you. And they hesitate to let it go for fear that the person that takes the project is going to screw it up. And then your reputation will be sullied for all time, right? So
I feel like we sometimes overestimate our own importance. At least I did. And that we think that, if we put out something, or we say something, or we send something to a client, that if we make one mistake, all of the good that we've done in all of the years of our career, as you said, will just disappear. If we put a typo in this email, the person will never work with us again. And it's really, like, if we look at it from ourselves, there are people that I've worked with who've made typos. I'm a grammar Nazi. My son probably has a very similar experience to you, Megan.
You're a teacher's kid, that's why.
I'm a teacher's kid. Then I went into law. My son is a maths person, and so we don't see eye to eye on the importance of commas and spelling. But anyway, digress. But as much as I'm a grammar Nazi, I've bought from people who've had typos. I've bought from people who are unpolished. I've bought from people who've made mistakes in their marketing or in things that they've sent to me, because I thought that they could help me. And more importantly, I thought that they could understand me, because for me, that's really important when I'm working with someone. And so, I try to give myself the same grace that I give to other people. So if the fact that they made a mistake didn't stop me from working with them, as you said earlier, Megan, about trusting, I trust that the people who are going to work with me understand that it's a mistake and I'm human, and, will want to work with me regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could all do with letting go of the belief around being perfect. And I have actually eliminated that from my language with my kids, because I noticed that when I was talking to them, that I would say, you need to do the job perfectly. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. This is something that is not going to serve them well, because it's also perception. What is perfect? What does that even mean? Yeah. So I laid a whole new generation is going to grow up with this. But I think that the one of the things that I noticed was maybe that perfection is what's the word? I'm having trouble with my word today, but people will associate professionalism with perfection. So I'm not professional. I hear this a lot. Like, I have to pursue this degree, or I have to pursue this in order for me to not make mistakes, in order to present myself as knowledgeable, because I think that people just essentially are feeling like they just don't have the stuff, that they haven't arrived. And so therefore the perfection exactly is a protectionism, as I think that Sheila said. It's a bit of a protectionism against failure.
I think back to the first couple programs that I launched, and to Wendy's point earlier, I cringe. I cringe at the name. I cringe at the messaging that I used. But here's the thing. I may cringe now, but at that moment I didn't, and people bought it. And I wouldn't be where I was today if I hadn't launched with the cringeworthy messaging that I had. And it's very possible that in 10 years from now, I'm going to look back at what I'm doing today and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And so, I think we've got to be okay making the mistake, making it not be perfect, because at the end of the day, if you don't try it, you'll never know. Mm-hmm. And if it stays hidden on your computer or in your head because you're afraid of, getting it out there or putting it on and it not being just right, then it's definitely not going to be right because nobody's going to see it. So I always say to my clients, I'd rather you go and make a mistake, but get it out there than not get it out there. That way, there's so much learning that happens in our perceived failures. The failure is just that springboard to the next level. We have to experience that in order to grow and do different. We have to. It's not really a choice.
Can I chime in for just one other thing, just building on what Sheila said? One of the things that I found helpful is treating things as an experiment. So being really detached from the results, right? So yes, you want to learn from the results and you want to improve where you can, but really viewing it as an experiment. And that helps you move forward much more quickly because you're not concerned about getting, if it's an experiment, it doesn't have to be 100% right. In fact, it's probably useful if it's not 100% correct because that's the way how you learn from it. And if you approach the things in your business as much as you can as an experiment, you'll move a lot more quickly and not be, in a emotional heat if things don't work out.
I think that's brilliant. I think, there's a lot of creativity that comes forth when you let go. Right. And that's what this business is all about, creativity. Mm-hmm. I think it's all about, I think the most creative people are the entrepreneurs because they can't help it. They got to get it out. So thank you. Does anyone else have any words of wisdom? Wendy, Susan, anything about perfection? Well, I hope we get people to start to think about it and start to reevaluate perfection. I think that if you think, because I've had this a lot in the conversations, if you believe secretly, you're like, oh, I think perfection has its value. Yeah, I think there is some exacting detail. If you're a lawyer, I think I want my lawyer to be a person who pays attention to the words. Yes. Or your accountant or whomever, right? Yes. But I think that what we could all do is just reevaluate that word. Take all the positive things like being exacting and, being careful and concise. I think take that away from it, but let go of the other stuff. So thank you, ladies. That was fruit for me to learn. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Insight. If you enjoyed listening, do us a solid and leave us a review. It helps keep us motivated to put our time into producing episodes of value. Thank you.